Our southern weather is unpredictable.
We know you've seen a thing or two.
Like heavy rainstorms, extreme heat, and flying debris.
Your New South windows are custom built for your home and designed for extreme conditions.
That's why you need New South by your side.
Enjoy comfort, safety, and security.
We install peace of mind with our lifetime guarantee. Superior Windows, factory direct.
New South proud.
Buy more, save more. Volume discounts on 4 or more windows.
Time, weather, and highways. How you doing, everybody? I'm Chief Meteorologist Denis Phillips. Heat's still the hot topic of weather conversation, right? Just smashed the previous record for rainfall in Tampa. Still a very nice day. We've got some clouds out there, even a couple of sprinkles as another front rolls through the area. Most of us wake up to sunshine and then very warm temperatures in the afternoon. For temperatures, they're going up and they're staying up. Really nice forecast, especially if you're planning on going to the beach or the pool. Rain chances very slim. It's another beautiful day in store. It's going to bring us a very high chance of storms. Isolated showers across the area. Mother Nature likes to remind us that it isn't set by a calendar. We're always on it for you, just in case things begin to pop.
Streaming from the ABC Action Weather Center in Studio A, this is Denis Phillips Live.
Sponsored by New South Window Solutions. Made in Florida for Florida homes by Florida workers.
How you doing, everybody? ABC Action News Chief Meteorologist Denis Phillips. This is going to be my toughest moment of all time, trying to secure DPL tonight while we are tracking Lee, while I have just started my fantasy football draft. So I have my draft over here. I have our Tropic stuff here. We just went to the first round, and against my better judgment, I had the 7th pick. It's a non-PPR draft. It's a standard draft, so you don't get bonus points for receptions. So it makes receivers a little bit less important in a sense, but I couldn't quit Saquon Barkley. I know I should have taken Robinson from the Falcons. I know, but I just could not quit Saquon. So, yeah, I know it's probably going to come back to bite me, but I couldn't do it. I was going to actually go Nick Chubb, but you know what? I already have Nick Chubb in another league, so I had to do it. So, yeah, so again, what we're going to be doing tonight, I am frantically going to see if I can keep track of what players are still available while we talk about what's behind me, which is Tropical Storm Lee. I hope you guys had a great holiday weekend. Boy, it was amazing with the low humidity and the no rain. I mean, the no rain kind of concerns me a little bit because we're clearly well behind average as it is, you know, and then at that point, all of a sudden we get into November and December and we're lacking rain, and then we're looking at, by the way, my pick is I'm on the clock again. So let's see who we go through. Wow. So Garrett Wilson is available. Well, I am jumping on Garrett Wilson because I do believe Garrett Wilson might be the #1 receiver in football this year. My only concern is that the Jets have such a good defense that I think they might not need to throw the ball very much, but I don't know. I mean, I think the guy is just absolutely awesome. Cooper Kupp is still out there because if you've heard, he has a really bad hamstring. He's in Minnesota for some specialists to take a look at it. So I had a choice to go Kupp. Instead, I went with Garrett Wilson. All right, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the long-range stuff, and then we will get into, because I know we're going to start to see some folks who are actually here, maybe from the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast, because at the end of the day, in my opinion, if we are looking at anything in terms of a landfalling hurricane with Lee, and by the way, I'll just go ahead and show you. I mean, the Hurricane Center certainly does have this as a Cat 4, potentially even a Cat 5. I'm going to go ahead and load up the graphics for you so you can kind of see it. But in fact, yeah, let's just go ahead and pop that in here. Let me load it up on the computer. And all right, so here we go. So we have got, where is it? Here we go. So here's the latest. Winds of 45 miles an hour, Tropical Storm Lee expected to become a major hurricane over the next, let me get my clicker over here. Yeah, I'm still looking at who people are picking. Cooper Kupp is still not being taken. I don't blame him. I mean, you want to risk a high draft choice on a guy who has a hamstring injury who's 30 years old? That is a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. All right, anyway, let's go ahead and look at the graphics full. So you have Tropical Storm Lee, winds of 45 miles an hour, moving west-northwest at 16. All right, it already is beginning to get that look to it, isn't it? I mean, it already is. So if you look at the track, this is a track that's pretty much set in stone. We don't expect any changes in terms of the track. I mean, might it go a little bit more to the south? I mean, I suppose it's possible. But at this point, you know, my gut is this is right on the money, staying north of the islands, which is important. Because here's the thing to remember. The stronger a system gets, right? The stronger the system gets, the more likely it'll go toward the north sooner. So a weaker system stays more south, a stronger system goes a little bit more toward the north. So because this is expected to intensify rather quickly, my gut tells me this is going to be more of a northerly track. Okay? So that's kind of the way I'm looking at right now. Now, where are we looking at? Category 1 by Thursday, Category 3 by Friday, Category 4 by Saturday. I will throw out here, just because it was something that was kind of funny. Remember that girl who was going around saying, oh, you're going to get a Cat 6 hitting the East Coast around September 6th. There's no such thing as a Cat 6. September 10th is the peak of the hurricane season, so it's almost always a very active time anyway, right? However, it is kind of funny that there is going to be a sizable hurricane coming up in this area at that point in time, all right? So that is something that is rather interesting, I guess. All right, so here's my point. The islands obviously are very concerned about this. Puerto Rico, the Leeward Islands, the Windward Islands, the Dominican, Haiti, Hispaniola. All of these areas obviously really, really concerned about the potential of this storm, right? Well, at this point, it appears pretty likely this is going to be on the northern fringe of those islands. Okay, so Cooper Kupp just got back to the draft. Cooper Kupp just got taken the pick before me in the third round. So that he really, really did drop. So I'm now on the clock, and I am going to go with a quarterback here, even though I think there are some great quarterbacks. I have a feeling it's going to be, for me, between Lamar Jackson and Justin Fields. Let me see what running backs are available. Stand by. Ramondre Stevenson, no. Yeah. I like those cheat codes quarterback, and while I do think Justin Fields is really awesome, there's just something about Lamar maybe having something to prove. So I believe I'm going to go with Lamar as my pick. So there you go. Now I have a few more minutes before we're back in. All right, so let's go ahead and look at some of the models, all right? Because I do want to show you a couple things here. If this stays true to what the track is right now, and I think it will, at that point, I do think the islands will be on the southern fringe of this, and they probably will not be getting quite the impact that they might have otherwise. And that is really 100% what we're hoping for, obviously, right? Okay, so if we look at these are from the next 2 weeks for the Climate Prediction Center, okay? And I want you just to kind of get a feel for what this is. The red area right here is a greater than 40% chance, or rather than 20% chance of development. The darker red there, the solid red, is a greater than 40% chance of development. Now, there's a couple of things worth noting in this, and I think this is really important. Look in the Caribbean and look in the Gulf, right? During an El Niño year, it is very, very common for much drier air and more hostile conditions to be a part of the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. All right? So that is really important to remember. So quite often what happens is you literally see the Gulf and the Caribbean shut down in an El Nino year. So coming up over the next 7 to 10 days, even if for some reason this were to scoot into the Caribbean, and that does not appear likely, at that point, I'm more inclined to think it's going to be non-factor. So typically, the September 10th period to the end of September, you quite often are looking at development that is more in the tropical Atlantic, the Cape Verde area, and it takes that track toward the East Coast. Now, why do we say that a storm of this nature would probably curve or be more inclined to curve, right? Well, let's go back and look at the long range, and we'll kind of have some answers for you on that. So you even look at the next one, from September 20th to September 23rd. It still takes this track to the west. And we will see at that point if it eventually curves or makes it into the Caribbean. But again, remember, the Caribbean is usually kind of shut down at this time in an El Nino year. So what does that mean? Well, what happens in the east coast of the United States quite often from mid-September on? What happens? Cold fronts. We often see a front, right? Well, what does a front do? A front is what will cause a system, a tropical system coming in to curve. We've told you this a million times. It's all about where the high pressure sets up to try to block a storm from moving north or push a storm. I'm on the clock. Stand by. Being on the clock right now, I believe I am going to go with a surprise. I think this is also a player due for a large increase this year if he is healthy. I am going to go with my fourth round selection, Darren Waller, tight end for the New York Giants. All right, now I'm off the clock. All right. So anyway, as I was saying, we've shown you this map a lot, okay? Where the positioning of this high is, or a ridge of high pressure, is huge. Because wherever the flow is around this high, that is where this storm is going to want to go. If it's driven west because the ridge builds, it's going to go west. If the high starts to retreat, it's going to find a little hole and it's going to move. Now, typically and historically, that is exactly what these storms do. They usually find a front because over a 5 to 7 day stretch, mid-September on, you often have fronts coming in on the eastern seaboard. You often do, all right? So with that being said, you quite often have, at some point, a system that is going to curve. Now, here is the GFS, hashtag cha-ching, all right? For those of you who don't know, if you know, you know. If you don't know, that is just something from a guy on Twitter who says that the GFS says that I pay them, or I get paid every time I say GFS. The fact that the GFS is just a math problem is kind of inconsequential, but regardless, that is why. Apparently, there's some joker out there who thinks, oh, the GFS actually pays him money when he says it. No, for the record, I usually mock the GFS, and I'm far more a fan of the euro. Anyone who knows me knows that's just the way I am. Here's 2 days down the road. There's the storm. Here's 3 days with the GFS. Here's 4 days with the GFS. Here's the euro as the GFS. They are right on top of each other. So that is why we have an extreme amount of confidence in this forecast over the next 4 to 5 days. All right? It is to me, it is, by the way, let me check and see. I've not even seen that we're actually streaming correctly. I've been looking at my fantasy draft. So let me make sure that we are actually on here. Yeah, we are. So that's a plus. Okay, so, and we actually have 4,100 people here. So my apologies. There's a lot of people here. I'm sure quite a few of them are not interested in my fantasy draft. But as I said, we do multitask. So there's the GFS in 4 days. There's the euro, both of which have it as a hurricane. The GFS is a little stronger. Doesn't really matter. It is going to be a major hurricane. I can all but guarantee it is going to be a minimum 3, maybe even a 4 or a 5. So where is the positioning of that high? Because that, as I said, is the key to everything, right? The GFS Let's go out 4 days. We go to 120 hours. You've got that ridge right there. You see it? You see the high and the high? You see that ridge? Now, if that ridge were not to break down, then all of a sudden, you would be looking at a track that would be going far more to the west, right? If that ridge were not to break down, you would have a westerly track because it would not have an escape route. So that is clearly something that we have to keep our eyes on. However, there is a ton of consensus as well that that is exactly what we will have, a front coming in. There it is, and look what happens to the ridge. It starts to break down. Okay? Oh, I'm up again. Stand by. Wait a minute. Let's see. So for my fourth round, no, I'm in my fifth round right now. What is available? The best available receiver? Boy, look who's still available. Do I want to be gutsy and go with Jonathan Taylor thinking he gets traded? That is an interesting question. Gosh, that would be a really gutsy play. I'm going to do it. Jonathan Taylor is now a part of the Phillips Screwdrivers, and hope that he comes back for the second half of the season, and that would allow me to dominate going into the playoffs. It's a gutsy move, I don't know, but there's a lot of mid-range fifth, sixth round running backs that are out there that I think are going to be a lot better than people realize. Oh, I'm sorry, back to weather. I've never had a draft while I've done DPL before. It is a challenge. All right, so let's go back. So anyway, look at what starts to happen. The ridge breaks down, the trough builds, and look what happens. It starts to curve. Now, I will tell you, the GFS, #Ching, is far closer to the East Coast than the Euro is. Here's the GFS at 210 hours. Here's the Euro, slower. Now, why does that matter? Because with the front coming in, the slower the system goes, the more likely it's going to get caught up and swung to the north. So the GFS is faster. So because of that, watch what the GFS does with this track. I'm just going to go ahead and play the track. So here goes the GFS track. Here it goes. Because the front is a little bit weaker and a little slower, the GFS has this much closer to the mid-Atlantic. It does eventually curve, but it curves with what could be, an impact on the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic. So that is your GFS, farther to the west. When we look at the GFS right there, let's compare it to the Euro. There's the GFS, there's the Euro. Not even close. So why the difference? Look, this is 11 days out. Okay? In the reality, this is pretty much fantasy land. I mean, it really is. 11 days out is pretty much fantasy land. So the ability to forecast whether a storm is going to be 300 miles closer to the coast 11 days out is impossible. But my point is, there is curvature with both, as there should be, because you will usually see a front at some point in time impacting the East Coast from mid-September on. And that is what's going to cause the ridge to weaken, which will then allow the storm to curve. So what do we know? And look, there's going to be folks watching us from the Mid-Atlantic to the Northeast because there's a lot of folks friends and family of folks in the Bay Area have friends and family up north, and they're going to want to watch. So we're going to be all over this storm right on for the next 10 days. And I will tell you, I would like to think our ability to track tropical systems being in Florida and having a little more experience than folks up north, you at least add us to the list of your trusted sources. Let's see if I'm coming up any minute now. So at the end of the day, what do we know? The next 4 days are locked in. The track will not switch. you will have a slowly intensifying tropical storm that is going to become a hurricane at some point. That is the thinking, okay? It will likely, if not likely, it will almost assuredly go through rapid intensification. In doing so, it will probably go from a Cat 1 to a Cat 3 hurricane. But it's doing it so early in the game that very often you will see that peak and start to subside a little bit as it continues to go, because again, it is so far out, okay? So when you look at the euro in the same amount of time, and I'll go ahead and take the euro full, because we haven't looked at the complete euro run, and I'll just go ahead and run the euro for you. The euro is slower. It is probably just as fast, but because it curves earlier, it poses really no threat at this point to the east coast of the U.S. I say that with knowing full well that these models are going to change. All right, I'm up again, and I'm going to take the person who I think has another great year. I am going with, gosh. Tough. Do I want another one? Yeah, this is challenging here. All of a sudden, things got a little trickier. No, I'm going with who I think is going to have a great year. I love Cam Akers. I think Cam Akers has a monster season. All right, let's go back to what we looked at again. Sorry about that. I missed the euro. But I do know what it's showing. And the euro is showing a gradual strengthening with a turn earlier than the GFS. And if the euro is right, it'll stay well to the east of the U.S. So let's get back to what we were saying. The first 4 to 5 days are locked in. This will likely stay north of the islands. It's not a sure thing yet, but we are heavily leaning toward it staying north of the islands, okay? And at that point, we will start to see, you can see the front. Look right there. I'm going to go ahead and stop this and take it full, because this illustrates what we're talking about perfectly, all right? Look at the front coming in on the East Coast. I'll go ahead and highlight it for you. The front is it's coming in right there, okay? Let's stop this. Now watch. It's going backwards. Bloop. Stop it and go forward. All right, so stop the loop, play forward. Okay. So I want you to look at this front coming in. All right, here we go. So watch as we go. We're moving. And then right there, look at the East Coast. See that front? See that front on the East Coast? And look what starts to happen. The ridge breaks down, the storm moves north. And it's as simple as that. That is what the euro is forecasting. Look at the front. See it? See it coming in and literally pushing it to the right. So there you have it. Now, that is, I repeat, that is 11 days out. There is no way we can even be remotely close to where that curvature is going to happen. So let's go over what we know. We know the next 4 days, the track is locked in. We know it's going to become a hurricane and probably a major hurricane. Day 6 or 7, a week out, the positioning of the ridge is the key to everything. All right? Wherever that ridge is, am I up again? Coming close. Wherever that ridge is, if the fronts that come in weaken and the ridge doesn't weaken as much, then you would likely see a storm closer to the east coast of the U.S. Historically, if we look back in history, storms like the Outer Banks of the Carolinas and curving as it's happening. That's often what happens this time of the year, climatologically speaking, looking back in history, okay? So that's kind of what we're looking at right now. If the front does indeed come in from that period of day 6 to day 10 and starts to weaken, you will see a curvature. You will. At this point, what do I think the probabilities of Florida being at serious risk eventually? At this point, it's not 0, but it's probably less than 20%. There are solid signs that a curvature is going to occur. But day 8 or 9 out, it's not impossible that that ridge holds true or that the front misses or weakens and the ridge tries to build some. So in my opinion right now, and again, we'll be on every day, so we can give updates as we go through this process. But in my opinion right now, the track of this storm is going to stay in this direction. It will eventually start to curve and more than likely stay east of the United States at least through day 7 or 8, and then we'll see if it's close enough to the Outer Banks or the Mid-Atlantic day 9 or 10 based on the fronts and based on the ridging. That's what we've got. All right? The models are probably going to do a lot up. I'm on the clock again. Stand by. Let us see. Who do I need now? I could use, oh boy, there's still some. Oh, I got to take Jahan Dotson because I'll be honest, he's my boy. He's a Penn Stater. I think he has a big year. So I'm going with Jahan Dotson. That did not take long at all. Okay, so, anyway, that Jonathan Taylor pick, I don't know. I think he still gets traded from the Colts, maybe to the Dolphins, and then all of a sudden he could be a monster breakout second half of the season. That's kind of the way that I'm thinking right now. All right, so we'll be back again tomorrow. Now, I will warn you a couple of things. You go on social media, you are going to see, there's going to be times where these models are going to be to the East Coast. There are. Probably not Florida, but the Outer Banks of the Carolinas and the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. I would almost guarantee there will be model runs that will show that. And there'll probably be a Cat 4 when they do. And you're going to start freaking out if you trust that source. Anybody who posts a model on social media 8 or 9 days out and saying, look what look at the possibility. Look, we're having a chat now, so we can show models and we can kind of tell you what we think about them and why they are or aren't reasonable. But if you find sites and you'll scroll through your feed, and I know you're going to see it. I see it on TikTok all the time. You're going to see people, oh, look, oh, no, we got to what? No, just ban them or block them because they're not going to do you any good. All right. If you're from the Northeast or the Mid-Atlantic, trust your folks down south who have their people that they trust and go with those sources. I truly believe that's important. OK, so that's where we are. That is where we are. I think in terms of, let's see, do I have any other graphics to show you? Yeah, this is the spaghetti model graphic. This also shows kind of the same stuff. And it really does. That shows the track. Now, by the way, you might see that line. See the black line that goes right on straight across Florida? That is just extrapolated line. All that means is if you were to take the current track and draw a line straight from where it goes. It's not a forecast. And there's, oh, look at the XTRP model. If you see anybody who says that, they're a moron. All right? Because they're clearly not a meteorologist. It's just the extrapolated line of a straight line from where the NHC is taking their forecast, okay? So you have that. One other thing I want to mention, we've been doing fundraising for the Red Cross Hurricane Relief Fund. Usually our donations with our Rule 7 stuff go to the Children's Miracle Network, but over the weekend we were doing the Hurricane Relief Fund. We have continued this week because the response has been amazing. Thank you very much. The funds, you get all of our Rule number 7 stuff if you go on Etsy.com or just go to the top of my Facebook page and you'll see the link to our Etsy site or our clothing site. And again, proceeds benefit. This week they benefit the Red Cross Hurricane Relief Fund. Starting next week, we'll probably be back to the Children's Miracle Network because we do that from the holidays. So we make these ourselves. Some of them we actually have folks make them for us now because we couldn't keep up with the orders. But that's kind of what we do, and I wanted to remind everybody that. Thank you very, very much. And any stars that are on here as well, also those proceeds benefit Children's Miracle Network. I have not seen a link on how to forward that to the Red Cross. So that's it, folks. I appreciate your time, your loyalty. I will be updating 24/7 on social. Oh, I'm on again. I will be updating 24/7 on social, and as well as through the rest of the hurricane season. You have a great night. Thanks for watching. And we will see you on the next edition of Dennis Phillips Live. See you guys.
Our southern weather is unpredictable.
We know you've seen a thing or two.
Like heavy rainstorms, extreme heat, and flying debris.
Your New South windows are custom built for your home and designed for extreme conditions.
That's why you need New South by your side.
Enjoy comfort, safety, and security.
We install peace of mind with our lifetime guarantee. Superior Windows, factory direct.
New South proud.
Buy more, save more. Volume discounts on 4 or more windows.